And thanks for joining me here. That's Hawkeye on the Maple Leafs Man Advantage as we talk about the Leafs through the history and looking into why they haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. And we're now going to jump into the 1969 NHL Playoffs. So in this particular year that's season 1968-69. The Leafs ended up in second place. So that pits them off against the Boston Bruins, who are making enormous improvements with their team. Now, looking at my own team, even with the changes made there, I don't think I'm going to climb the standings at all. I don't think I would catch the New York Rangers or bypass them or past them in the standings. So I'll just leave where I am in my own mind of my own team. But before I jump into more details about the 1969 playoffs, I must state that this was actually the very first season in which the Hockey Night in Canada hockey theme, I think that's what they call it. I always think of it as the song for Hockey Night in Canada. This was the very first season in which that was played, which is pretty cool. Um, when you listen to it, it makes me pretty proud as a hockey fan to hear the tune. Really good. If you're not aware of this tune, I would be shocked that you're watching this. You should know that what it is. If you don't, try YouTubing that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you've never heard it. I don't know. But definitely very cool song. Very to me, definitely a staple from my childhood. Saturday nights. It would be when I would be watching the Leafs on CBC. You'd hear that song, get you pumped up, ready for the game to start. It was written by Dolores Claman um, back in 1968. I wonder if the kids back then were whistling this tune as they dreamed of Normie Ullman or Jean Beliveau scoring a goal for their team, or maybe pretending they were that player out on the ice. Um, but sadly, CBC lost the song in 2008. It is now owned by CTV, and I believe it's used to this day on TSN hockey broadcasts. I'm not sure because I don't have TSN on my television. I'm not sure. I think they still use it. I haven't seen a hockey game on TSN in such a long time. Um, well, one cool thing for me as well, I remember Neil Peart from Rush did a drum along to the tune, which was very jazzy, and maybe to some not what they would expect if they didn't know the influences that Neil Peart had on the drums. But my gosh, is it ever cool, really cool, to hear some jazzy drums put to the hockey theme. Awesome stuff. And I thought that was beyond cool. So I thought I should mention that as well about this particular season. Now I did see with the Bruins and the Leafs facing off in the playoffs. I saw earlier this season. I did see one game between these two teams very early in the season. I believe the Leafs won it 2-0. Johnny Bauer was in net. I think he was even the first star. But I mentioned in the blog I've written, I thought I should pass this along as well. There was a hilarious commercial in my mind, and I hope it's okay to say this on YouTube. I don't know. But if you drink Molson Canadian, you can become good at gymnastics. I think that's hilarious. I violently shake my head in disagreement and state that no, you will think you're good at gymnastics if you overwhelm yourself in too many of those wobbly pops. I know in partaking in a few of these will do nothing in the gymnastics department at all. So I thought that was kind of funny. And yeah, yeah, not how it goes. So, anyways, in the first round we have Toronto and Boston facing off. Toronto really needs to watch out here, as I talked about in an earlier video talking about the season or the Eastern Division. Phil Esposito led the Bruins with 49 goals. Ken Hodge had 45. Beyond just those two guys, they had five other 20 goal scorers. So you had John McKenzie with 29, Derek Sanderson with 26, Freddie Stanfield with 25, Johnny Busick with 24, and rounding them out on defense, Bobby Orr had 21. Um, Great collection of offensive players there. Now, the opener was at Boston Garden, and my dear, it was a smoke show. The Bruins ended up winning 10-0. I couldn't imagine what the Leaf fans were thinking or talking about after such a gigantic and humiliating loss like that. Phil Esposito must have had an amazing night. He scored four goals, including the game winner, and three, count them, three power play goals. And he also had two assists for 6 points altogether. Jerry Cheevers picked up the shutout and had 40 saves. So it's not like the Leafs were pinned in their own zone the whole night. They were getting opportunities themselves and did not cash in at all. Now, certainly this is way before my time, but this is something I'm going to talk about now. Interestingly, sort of going on in Leafland as well. The same topic, that's hits or illegal hits. Um, I believe this was the game. It was the opening game with the infamous hit delivered by Leafs defenseman Pat Quinn when he laid out Bruins defenseman Bobby Orr in Boston. Bobby was coming up the ice out of his own zone along the boards, more or less getting out of the corner. Um, Now, in my mind, the table was completely set for this type of hit. In my mind, it was the second period, and the score was already 6-0 Boston. They were already uh, putting the boots to the Leafs here. Um, Now, it seems there are different viewpoints, perhaps, to this hit. I've got my own. I'm going to share that with you. But personally, I believe, due to the fact that the guy who laid out the hit was Pat Quinn, um, he saw perhaps a perfect opportunity to lay out the Bruins star. So he did it. Just looking at Pat's NHL career stats, he had 952 penalty minutes in 606 games. So he was rough. He was tough. He played that aggressive, violent style if he needed and could survive if he had to play that style. So I understand it's not Dave Keon or Norm Allman that delivered this hit, and I believe neither of those guys would ever throw that hit on Bobby Orr. Um, Now, in addition, when I see this hit, there's three things that come to my mind. A, this is an elbow. It wasn't a shoulder check, it was an elbow. It was a charge. Pat was off his skates as well. And what would the league do now if, say, Connor McDavid was knocked out cold like this, like Bobby Orr was on this night? And interestingly, as I said, the Leafs are kind of going on with this right now. Currently, as Ryan Reeves last Saturday, a week ago today, I believe, threw a hit to the head on Edmonton Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse as he was coming around the net with his head down. Um, there's no excuse. Certainly in today's hockey, you cannot hit a guy in the head, like directly hit a player in the head. At one time, that was fine. Not anymore. They are, that we know a lot more about blows to the head now and are trying not to have that in the game. And you will be penalized if you do so, hit someone in the head with your shoulder. At the same time, Matthew Knies was hit the following game by Utah's defenseman. No, no, sorry, Vegas's defenseman, White Cloud. It looked like a hit to the head as well, and he might have been off his skates too. Certainly didn't see that hit as much as I had the Reeves. I actually watched that game in total, the Edmonton Toronto game. I didn't see the Vegas game. I was working that night. But anyways, Toronto's kind of going through that right now with hits to the head currently. And as I said, one time that was okay to throw a body check to someone's head. Remember Scott Stevens? Remember his hit on Eric Lindros? That's exactly what that was. And that was legal. That was fine. Stevens did not get a penalty, nor did anybody think that was a penalty. I think at the time, maybe I'm a little barbaric and whatever, in thinking that at the time, hey, that's fine, but that wasn't a penalty at the time. And Scott Stevens is also in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Um, and that's one of the things he was known for was these devastating body checks, and you had to know where he was if you were in their zone, the team he was playing for. Um, but so in turn as well, I asked the question: if that was Scott Stevens that was coming in to deliver this hit to Darnell Nurse, for example, that Reeves did on Saturday night, and through that same body check, like it could be a lot worse for Darnell Nurse. He may have played his last game, I don't know, or he could be out a lot longer, or his career may not be the same um, as that. But what happened back to this game in 1969? Um, that's really what we're trying to concentrate on here. But what happened after this hit is literally it was an all-out brawl with players and fans. Yes, fans were involved with this as well. Fans were reaching over the glass, swinging and hitting players of the Leafs. Um, it was pretty bad. Um, not a nice night for hockey. Not a nice night for anyone involved, I guess, in that, that moment. But it was an all-out brawl going on. And what is interesting is Bobby Orr did not miss a game. Today, I think if that happened, he may not have played another playoff game. He may be out long term. That it was a devastating hit, contact. I don't know if I can call it a hit. It definitely was a um, not a clean hit delivered by Pat Quinn. Um, So, anyways, Boston took the opening game 10-0. For the second game, Toronto really needed to improve big time here. They just got spanked considerably in Boston. But in the second game, it was yet another smoke show in Boston. This time they improved, but they lost 7-0 this time. Johnny Busick picked up 2 goals, including the power play game winner and an assist for 3 points. Cheever grabbed his second consecutive shutout with 22 saves this time. Boston was getting better too. They almost cut their shots against in half. Um, so after 2 games in Boston, the Bruins were outscoring the Leafs 17-0. And it's not like Toronto had a bunch of terrible players. They had some really good players playing for the Leafs. It was not working here for them at all. So both teams were off to Maple Leaf Gardens now for game three. Um, And it was here Toronto was able to bring the games much, much closer than they would get on the road. Derek Sanderson, though, scored the game winner of game three and also had an assist, and Boston skated away with a 4-3 win in game three. Cheevers had 38 saves for the victory. And then on to game four, where Toronto needed to win just to stay alive, or they could get swept by the Bruins. Derek Sanderson was back again, and this time he scored 2 goals, including the game winner, and Boston took game four by a 3-2 score in the series sweep. Cheevers had 26 saves for the win. Um, just looking at my own team, I don't know if they'd fare much better. I certainly wouldn't say, oh, yes, we would beat the Bruins. No. I would have the same goaltenders, very similar defense. And forwards up front, there'd be a few changes there, but a lot of the same players would be on both teams. So I'd say maybe at best, maybe I could maybe get a game out of Toronto. I got Mahovlich and Pappen and Parise. Maybe one of those guys could score a goal or two. But at best, Toronto might win one game, but we would get bounced out pretty quick as well. So there you have it. So yeah, looking at the Bruins in this series here, Boston outscored Toronto 24-5 in 4 games. Not even close. Looking at the stats, Phil Esposito had 6 goals. Derek Sanderson had 5. Johnny Busick had 4. That's only 3 of their players. Cheevers had 2 shutouts and a sparkling 962 save percentage in those 4 games. Interesting as Orr just had 4 assists in 4 games. Um, my gosh, did it ever look like the Bruins were ready to take on the world here after annihilating the Leafs in the opening series? So for the Leafs, Ronnie Ellis led the club. He had 2 goals. Dave Keon had 3 assists and 4 points. Forbes Kennedy, who they picked up late in the season, led the squad with 38 penalty minutes. Thing is, he only played 1 game, so that's a lot of penalty minutes for 1 game there. Um, Ellis had a power play goal. Keon had a shorty. In that, this is maybe like, and you know the scores, but this is really where their problems mostly lie, as their defense wasn't able to hold Boston back very well. Johnny Bauer ended up playing in all 4 games and had an 888 save percentage, which ain't bad since they gave up 24 goals in 4 games. Bruce Gamble, the other goalie, his numbers were not as good as he had a brutal 803 save percentage. Not good at all. So we're off to the East Finals. We're going to jump into that now. And now the Bruins are facing the Montreal Canadiens, who won the Stanley Cup the previous season. The Habs, they had just swept the New York Rangers in 4, just like the Bruins did to the Leafs. And this series between the Bruins and the Habs may have been the best series in the 1969 playoffs. I'm just guessing here. Um, in the first game, it was at the Montreal Forum. And it was Ralph Backstrom ended up scoring the game winner in overtime, giving Montreal a 3-2 win. Gump Worsley had 22 saves for the win, and Cheevers had 32 saves for the loss. For the second game, it took overtime again. And this time it was Mickey Redmond who popped in the winner for the Habs on the power play to give Montreal a 4-3 win. Winning both games at home over the Bruins, took overtime both games. Those must have been good, exciting games for fans of both of those teams. So game 3, we're moving over to the Boston Garden. And Boston needed to win really to keep this series alive. You didn't want to go down 3-0 to Montreal. You had to win this big time. If Boston had any chance of coming back here, I think they really needed to win game 3. Esposito must have played a great game as he was involved in every single goal the Bruins scored. He scored 2 goals, including a power play marker and a game winner, and he had 3 assists, giving Boston a 5-0 shutout. Cheevers made 34 saves for the win. Um, there you go. So they shut Montreal down at home. Boston kept the juices flowing in game 4 as Bobby Orr scored his first playoff goal of the season and the game winner, giving the Bruins a 3-2 win. Cheevers had 28 saves for the win. So the series is all tied up now, and we're going back to Montreal, back to the Forum. But the Habs rebounded and took the series lead once again. This time it was J.C. Tremblay who ended up with the game winner, and Montreal took game 5 by a 4-2 score. Claude Provo also had 2 goals for the Habs. Roby Vachon was between the pipes now for Montreal and must have played well as he grabbed 40 saves for the win. Back in Boston, the Bruins needed to grab a win to keep this series alive. One more loss, they're out. They gotta win one to take it back to the Forum to see who could take Game 7. But this must have been a great game, I imagine, as they went into double overtime before Jean Beliveau. I haven't mentioned him yet in any of these Montreal games. He scored the game-winning goal, giving Montreal a 2-1 win, and a ticket to the Stanley Cup Finals. Beliveau also had an assist in the game. Beavers made 45 saves for the loss, and Vachon made 50 saves for the win. Great night for both goalies there. Um, Montreal, though, through the first two series against the Rangers and the Bruins, they scored 11 power play goals in 10 games. No surprise there, I'd say. I generally think if you want to advance far in the playoffs, getting your power play going, clicking, that's one good uh, reason or one thing you need to get going if you want to advance in the playoffs is get that power play going. Um, so there you have it. So we skate into the finals here, and once again we have the Montreal Canadiens facing off against the St. Louis Blues. Can the Blues rebound after being bounced out in 4 games last year? In the first round, St. Louis played the Philadelphia Flyers. Larry Keenan and Gary Sabourin both had 6 points apiece. Hall of Famer Jacques Plante was now playing in St. Louis. He had 2 shutouts and a beautiful 972 save percentage as the Blues swept the Flyers 4 straight. In the West Finals, they played the Los Angeles Kings, and the Blues were still kicking it. Red Berenson had 5 goals and 7 points. Plante had a shutout and a very nice 954 save percentage. The Blues swept through the Kings as well in 4 straight. The Blues were 8-0, making it to the finals. Excellent job there. Scotty Bowman's the coach still in St. Louis. Um, I know they're both getting long in the tooth, but you had Plante as your number one and Glenn Hall as the backup. Pretty amazing combo there the Blues had in net going for them. So in the finals, the opener was at the Montreal Forum, and Bobby Russo had the shorthanded game winner, and the Habs won Game 1 by a 3-1 score. Plante had 25 saves for the loss. In the second game, it was Dick Duff, ex-Leaf. He scored the power play game-winning goal as Montreal repeated the score and won 3-1 in Game 2. Hall took the net in Game 2 and he made 30 saves for the loss, while Vachon had 24 saves in the Montreal net. Game 3 moved to St. Louis, and the Blues needed to try and get their offense clicking here. They've got 2 goals in 2 games. They got to get it going. It was Montreal, though. They kind of got their offense clicking a little better here. Serge Savard scored the game winner, and Montreal won 4-0. Dick Duff, he had 2 goals this night, including a power play goal and an assist. Vachon grabbed 29 saves for the shutout win. In Game 4, the Blues tightened things up a bit, and the score was closer. But John Ferguson ended up scoring the game winner, and the Habs won 2-1. Hall had 29 saves in the loss, and Vachon had 32 for the win. So they copied the previous year and swept the Blues and won the 1969 Stanley Cup. The Montreal ended up with a 12-2 record, winning the Cup. Pretty darn good there. They also had 14 power play goals in the 14 playoff games they played, so that's good. That's like a 3 goal a game. Um, their power play was clicking for them. So looking at the Montreal club there, for Montreal, Dick Dove led them with 6 goals. Beliveau led the NHL with 10 assists and led the Habs with 15 points. He was, this is the playoffs. This is Beliveau. He's in the Hall of Fame. He's going to be one of the men. Ferguson spent some time in the sin bin as he had 80 penalty minutes in the 14 games played. Duff had 3 power play goals. Russo had a shorthanded goal. Ferguson, Russo, and Yvon Cornway. Haven't mentioned him yet either. All 3 of those guys had 2 game winners. But it was Serge Savard who won the Conn Smythe. which is terrific because he was only, I think, 23 years old at the time, pretty young. He had 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points, 24 penalty minutes in the 14 playoff games played. And Montreal also had a great 1-2 combo in that with Vachon and Worsley. Vachon ended up with the 7 of the wins. He had a shutout and led the NHL with a sparkling 953 save percentage and a godlike 1.42 goals against average. So he was letting in less than a goal and a half a game. Meanwhile, Montreal is scoring a power play goal a game. Yeah, they had things going for them. They were the champions. Um, they were the team to beat, and man, were they playing great. So there you have it. That's 2 consecutive cups now for the Montreal Canadiens, 1968 and 1969. So there you have it. So if you like this video, you could definitely hit the thumb down there, hit like or subscribe. I certainly have other videos about the Leafs and NHL hockey going through time as well. And if you want to comment on anything, go ahead. It's always awesome to talk hockey, and that would be great. But until next time, have yourself a wonderful day.